Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our second Make Xero Your Hero webinar. And thank you to those who have joined us once again from following on from our first introduction to the settings and a brief look at sales. So we're going to carry that theme over today and look at creating sales, credit notes, statements, credit control, and some reporting. So last week we started with contacts, and that again is our first port of call. So I shall hand over to the lovely Frankie, who is going to demo some of the Xero contacts for us.
Yep, morning everyone. So to create a contact is where we're going to begin. So there's a couple of ways you can do it. The first one is on the dashboard where you first log into Xero, and you've got this plus button up in the corner here, which is just a real quick shortcut. So I can go to contact there, or to be really obvious, I can go to contacts at the top, which is where I'm going to go. So this then takes me to the overall list, and you can see there's my lovely green button for adding a contact. What we then need to do is show you how to merge one. So you'll see I've got 3 clients here called duplicate. I don't want all 3, I want one contact form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tick the 2 that don't have any data, i.e. my email address or an address or a telephone number. So the 2 I've clicked here, I'm then going to go to options and go to merge. And what I can then do is go to find the one I do want, which is here, and then I'm going to say yes, I understand the consequences. And the reason it's flagging that is because if you merge contacts by ticking the 2, for instance, I've done there, you're going to lose that data that's stored in that in terms of addresses and emails. So that's why I've made sure that I'm merging into the one that also has that data. So merging, really nice if you've got want to keep a tidy contact list. Quite easily as well to edit something. So if I were to go to Bayside, I can just click on the name and open that up. And what we then are faced with is obviously the history of Bayside. Just to touch on a couple of things that are quite hidden, and you probably won't notice unless you're properly looking at it, but you've got the activity here, which is default view. You can arrange this into date order or however you'd like to see the information. But you then got notes and email. So notes, if you've got something where you're like, okay, this client only likes me to post their invoices, or this client likes me to call him Bob, whatever it might be, you can put a nice quick note in there. And then the third tab is like, it adds like a little mini CRM. So you can connect your Outlook or your Google into here with the email address that's on the contact. So for instance, I put in my colleague's email here, and it's picking up all the emails that I've sent him via my Outlook account. So this is really good if you just want to keep some correspondence trail and you don't have an external CRM system. Xero's sort of adding it for you here. In terms of editing overall details, obviously we're going to click the edit button over here, and you can change whatever details you need to do. Whilst we're in here, I was just going to quickly touch on something we mentioned last time, which was your default coding. So let's save yourself some time. Although Xero has got AI in the background where it's trying to remember what it is that you're entering in, you can also set defaults here. So sales, for instance, I want to say that I always sell to Bayside my bow ties. And I know that Bayside is in the east side. And I know that it's Prince Charles, that's my sales consultant, that always sells to this client. So I can, again, put in some defaults that at this point are going to help me in the future when I'm creating sales invoices. The other thing that is really handy, again, in Xero, if I just click back into the contacts view, is again, it's trying to just give you like a nice starting platform for building your business. So like I mentioned before, you could get an external CRM system, or if you're just at a size where you don't quite need that yet, you can use Xero. So you can create what they call groups and smart lists. So for instance, you can see I've created some groups here. So one's called Basket Case Partnership, and that's just an example where you might have one customer, but they've got different locations. So you want 4 different contacts, but it's actually one big group. So I've called the Basket Case Partnership. Or maybe there's some clients that I know are my A-star clients and customers I want to send a Christmas gift to. Whatever it might be, I can create a group here, and quite easily, whichever client it is, I just tick the little box and go to options and add to group. Somebody can be in multiple groups as well, so it's not just a case of one group fits all. And then equally, you've got these smart lists, which Xero create default ones for you, which you can then integrate with something like MailChimp and use for your marketing, which means you can send perhaps a discount offer, a nice bulk export from Xero. So this is just a nice starting point. Just to explain what the groups might look like, for instance, so I'm just going to jump to a report I created earlier. So this report is just my sales invoices in a month. And what I've been able to do is in the report settings, you can change the layout. So instead of perhaps it being by customer, I've created it by contact group. So then I can see down in this month, the Basket Case Partnership, all the different customers that might be in there. I can see all the invoices, or I can see which clients are now in my Christmas gift. So again, you can just use those groups in your reporting as well as sort of a CRM to use in your marketing. We are now going to quickly jump to quotes. Again, Xero doesn't proclaim to do everything amazingly, but it gives you the tools to start off. And quotes is one of those really nice, simple things to use. So to get there, you can go to business and quotes, or you can go to your little plus button. And again, you've got quote here as a quick start. So as you can see here, I've got a couple already laid out for us. So I've got a draft one that I've started to create, but haven't yet finished. I've then also got sent and accepted. So I'm just going to show you what a draft one looks like. So I'm just clicking on it to open it up. And you can see that I've already sort of filled in some features. So I'm just going to go back 1 second. Excuse if I've got some bad background noise. I've got some builders outside, which is really, really helpful. Sorry, this is my draft quote. So you can see you put in the customer and the date. The expiry date is something that's pre-populated from going to your settings, which we touched on last week, your default settings. And I've said that my quotes need to expire after 30 days because, let's be honest, your prices might change. So you want a quote to expire, and the client will see that when they view the quote themselves. You can change it if you need to. Quote obviously is sort of automatic, and reference is whatever you think the client might need to see. You can add a title, you can add a summary, and then you just fill in what you're quoting for. One element I've put here is I've just put this box some detail. So you don't always have to have an amount and a sales type. It could just be that you're using it for information. You can add as many lines as you like to this quote. Terms, again, this is going back to your invoice settings screen, which you can jump to by clicking on that hyperlink, and against your terms and conditions about sending these quotes. And one other thing, I've just put a little, you've got the history and notes of who created it, if it's been edited, and just a bit of history about it. So I'm going to send that to myself, which, there we go, all populates. Again, you'll remember last time we looked at email templates. What is it that you're actually saying that's attached to these documents you're sending out? You can tailor this, you can make it more personal and a little bit more your character. So I'm going to send that. What then happens is, so let's pretend I've now received my quote. This is what they see. So they get an email with that template, they've got an attachment that's a PDF, but they also have a view online link, and I've clicked that. And this is what I can see as your client. So as you can, this beautiful, beautiful layout I've created, I can either accept it, decline, or comment. If you have a comment, what will happen is it will actually send an email to you, and you'll if you accept, you'll get an alert equally if you get a decline. I'm going to leave that as it is and just show you what it looks like if we go back to quotes. So I've sent here two, they're pending. You can see that I've viewed it online. This is something that you'll see throughout Xero on the sales front, that if there's an online link and someone's clicking it, Xero logs that. So I haven't had any declines, that's great, but I have one accepted. So what does that mean? That means I need to fulfill this order now. So obviously I'll provide the goods and then I will want to create an invoice. So you can do that from this point here. And what it does is it just basically converts exactly what's on the quote into an invoice. But also, if you're using Xero for your full process, it might be that you now need to send a purchase order off to your supplier to order something to fulfill your sale. So it then gives you the ability to say, now create me a PO, I'll send that to my supplier, and the whole flow is there. What then happens if I do say create an invoice, mark it as invoice, which means I know that my order is now complete. And it's just loading. So you can see that this is now replicated my lovely quote, and you'll be now seeing how to create a sales in the next section. So in terms of how to do a sales invoice, I'm going to take us back to the dashboard, just because there's some really obvious ways to create one. You've got your plus in the top corner again, invoice. You've got this lovely button here, new sales invoice, or you can go to business and invoices. So here's one I've drafted already, and it's simply a case of following the boxes around. So I'm sending an invoice to myself again. And some of you might be going, oh, this doesn't look like my invoice screen. And that's because I'm using the new Xero invoicing layout. At the bottom, there's a switch to classic. So that might be what you're using. I quite like the new invoice layout, so I'm using it and playing around with it. And it's got some additional features, which obviously is one of the beauties of using Xero, and it's constantly updating behind the scenes. So one of the nice things about the new invoice module is you can now add a delivery address. So let's say my client needs to have billing and delivery on it. I need to send that off. I can add that in here. Reference, we mentioned last week, make sure you're putting any PO references on that you get given, because it might be that your client has got an approval process that means that nothing can be approved without the PO number, which will delay payment for you. Everything else is all defaulted in terms of we give 30 days or no days to this client. If I want to put a pay now button on this invoice, that's where I can do it here, and currency. And the branding theme, which we covered last week in terms of making it tailored to your company. So one really cool thing is you can add documents to an invoice. This might be for your own internal purposes, or it might be something you want to send with the invoice. So this could be that you want to send your T's and C's. It might be that you've done a drawing because you're an architect and you want to send that with the invoice. Whatever it might be is you upload an invoice and then you either say send with invoice or don't send with invoice. So that's a really nice feature, just to have it all sent. I've also put a little note to myself saying I love Xero, because I just need to always remind myself of these things. One thing to add on the sales front is Xero allows different access levels. So let's say you've got a junior in the team who you want to draft all the invoices, but you don't want them to send because you would like to do a check. You've got that ability to have a granular access level, just to make sure that the person that should be is the one that's sending out the invoices to your clients. At the point of here, obviously, we can send it by email. We can get a link, which is where we've got that 0 to 0 network code. You can print it if you're old school and want to post it, or just mark as done. So that's my draft invoice. I'm going to just mark as done, which makes it then sit in my awaiting payment section. What that then does is, here's my invoice. I then have more options. Now it's live and on the ledger. Obviously I can edit, I can resend it again, whatever it is. But the point I want to touch on here is repeating. So for Final Cut, we have a fixed fees monthly. So we want to set up repeat invoices. Obviously this saves us so much time that it's quite key. So you just click repeat, and then it will ask you how often, when do you want it to stop, and off it goes every month. What we then also have here is create and apply a credit note. So let's say you've overcharged on this invoice and you need to add a credit note. You quickly can either click it here, which will then load up basically the same screen, but flipped. A few of you will notice this is the old invoice layout. And it's completely flipped the amount that's outstanding. So perhaps I don't want to credit note all of it. I just want to credit note half of the original one. And I'm going to approve that. And then I can email it to the client. Another thing that you might want to do is here, I already have another credit note sat on the account, and this will automatically flag. So I've got £12. So if I want to apply that as well, then I can click this apply button and put the whole £12 or £5, whatever it might be, and apply it in that way. So I think that is credit notes. Apart from just very quickly to find them, you have to go to business, invoices, and then add credit notes. So Rebecca, do you want to explain when you would be using credit notes and when you perhaps wouldn't be?
Lovely, thank you for that. So yeah, just to briefly recap, we looked at again how to create a contact, merge and duplicate. So that's really, really important. You know, you could quite easily, if there's a different typo or something, create different contacts. And that would mean, like you said, you might miss out on chasing in your sales invoices if there then wasn't any email addresses in there. And again, it's just gonna, you know, put sales invoices under different sections. And again, it just makes the reporting not as tidy and could end up sort of spending a lot of time for yourselves trying to work out who does and doesn't owe you money. And then we looked at some default codings and groups. We deep dived into the setting up a quote and how to create a sales invoice. So again, attaching the documents to sales invoices is a really good idea. Some of you may have to reimburse expense claims from your clients. And again, by attaching those documents, or in effect like a timesheet, anything like that that you send off to a client, then they will get that image and as well as the invoice itself. So again, that makes it nice and tidy for them to be able to reimburse you your travel expenses. References. So yeah, so we touched upon the difference between editing, voiding and crediting. So there are lots of different functionalities and we have to be mindful of which ones that we choose. So when you're just starting to prepare a sales invoice, but it hasn't actually gone anywhere yet, and you've maybe saved it as a draft, or you know, and you want to come back to it, then again you will be able to edit that invoice to make sure that it's got all of the correct values on there, the correct dates, etc. If you then create that and you approve it, but you haven't actually sent that to anybody yet, you have the option to void it. So you'd only ever void something if it isn't in effect live, so you haven't sent it out to a client, to a customer for them. If that has gone out to somebody, then the correct thing to do would be actually to issue a credit note. That way you're keeping a full audit history as to what's been going on, A, for that customer, and B, for your sales history. So again, the crediting, you can either credit the invoice in its entirety, or you could just apply a very small credit note if you've maybe priced something up incorrectly. There's a section for items. We didn't go too deeply into that, but again, there's the functionality that if you have set pricing, set charge out rates, you can always default a lot of the invoice by using the items section on the invoice. And that means that it starts to pre-fill out everything for you rather than keep typing it in all the time. You can also copy invoices. Again, that saves a little bit of time there. And how we're demoing on our webinars is actually the web version of Xero. But again, there is an app and it's really, really handy. So if you're out and about and on the go, you can create those sales invoices, credit notes, etc. when you're out and about, and you don't have to come back and wait to be on the laptop. So again, just another brief overview here of creating credit notes. Again, it might be a very small one, or it might be that you're crediting the entire invoice in itself. As with a customer then who is in credit, next time you come to create that invoice, it will give you a flag. So you'll approve the invoice. It'll say, hey, as Frankie showed us, you've got £12 left on that account. Would you like to allocate that? And again, if that account is correct, you click yes. And that means then that your customer only has to potentially part pay that invoice. Next, we're going to look at Xero add-ons, and I know this is a Xero deep dive, and as we talked about last time, Xero is a great hub, but it's not a one size sort of fits all. So sometimes you may have to go outside of Xero to get great functionality and that real sort of granular detail. So an example of this may be that you work on projects and you have project-based billing. So you will probably need to record your time, your expenses, and again, you will then want to see whether a project is profitable. So for this, you might want to use something like Scoro or Harvest, because that in itself will be where you will keep all of that data, create those projects, look at those projects and maintain them. But when you're ready to invoice, you can obviously send that invoice to Xero. So although Xero will just have that copy of that invoice, in the actual, say, Harvest software itself, you will be able to see your profit of that particular project and you know, and who has and hasn't recorded their time. Another example is retail. Again, you know, there's some really good EPOS systems out there. They will not only then help you maintain and manage your stock, but again, the information, your daily sales will flow into Xero to make sure that you get the correct VAT treatment, and again, you'll get that really granular detail as to see what of your items that you're selling is and isn't doing very well. E-commerce. So again, you might sell on different platforms, and to manage that in Xero on its own is actually quite difficult. So again, you might want to look at something like TradeGecko, because that's like a hub and you link all of your online e-commerce platforms into it to again send the data into Xero so you can keep on top of your bookkeeping and your VAT returns. But the actual, you know, groundwork, the legwork is done in a different software. And again, there's ones out there for construction as well, if you want to look at projects again in CIS. Here at Farnell Clark, we use a lot of these softwares quite frequently. So again, if you do have any questions, I know we haven't covered all sectors there, but please do reach out to us, because you know, we might be able to help point you in the right direction. So that leads us on to statements.
Yep, cool. So no, that's not what I want. Can you see my Xero screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. So credit control is obviously really important. We're going to make sure we're sending invoices ASAP to get paid. We're going to make it as easy as possible for people to pay us. And if that doesn't work, then obviously we need to go back to the old school credit control. So why don't we just send a statement? It could be they simply haven't received the invoice. So let's send them a prompt and just say, hey, please pay us. So the way to get there is we're going to business, sales, and then we've got this send statements button here. Where am I jumping? So once I've clicked that, there's then two types of statement. There's one that's outstanding, which is kind of the main one you're ever going to send. And I'm going to send it as of today because I know my bank reconciliation is up to date and I have basically been shown who owes me money as of today. I've then clicked all of them and I can then say email. Again, you'll notice this message down the bottom is one of those templates you can change. And then it's obviously showing me here who I'm actually invoicing the statement and if I do or don't have an invoice email address. I can remove them if I need to. And again, branding theme for what it looks like. The other type of statement is an activity one. And you might just get asked this, because sometimes we do it, where someone says, oh, can you just send me a history? And again, that's really just handy to be able to say, yeah, here's a history of the last 12 months of what we've done with you. So two types of statements, and I'd say regularly send those out end of the month just to prompt people. If that then is still not working and we've got actual invoices outstanding, Xero allows a nice basic credit control way of noting things. So anyone can view this. It's got access to sales. And you'll see that in the awaiting payment tab, we've got the expected date column. And there's a little plus button here when I hover over it that says add a date and note. So what that simply means is that me as the credit control in the company, I'm going to click on here and I'm going to say I spoke to, oh no, don't want to click on the invoice. Let's shoot back. I'm going to click on add date and note. I'm just going to say spoke to Harry, promised me payment tomorrow. I'm going to save that. So what that then means is if tomorrow passes and they still haven't paid me, it will go red, which then means obviously it will just flag it to you to follow up again. Just whilst we're in here, you'll notice that there's a sent word at the end, and if it changes to viewed, what that means is, like on the quotes, if you've sent an online link and they have clicked it, it will then update in Xero. So if I go to City Limousines, for instance, and I shuffle on down to the notes and history, what will happen is you can see that I've put my note when I expect payment. If they viewed it online, there will be an entry here letting you know what time and what date. So again, if people give you the old classic, oh, I haven't received your invoice, you can perhaps set them right. So that's sort of using the overview of sales to keep a log of who's been contacted about debts. And if someone goes off sick, anyone can view this. The next nice thing I'm just going to jump to, which is your debtors report, which I need to find on the tab, 1 second, is this is an age receivable report that basically you can run whenever you want, and I've sort of saved it as a custom, and the reason being is because I've made sure I've got the mobile telephone number showing on here. So again, somebody who's doing credit control can run this report. They easily can see the telephone number, they can see what invoices are there, and they can see if there's an expected date that's already been entered, so that they can sort of action that and talk to the person who needs to pay them. So really just nice and simple. As we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we do have invoice reminders, which is just automated emails that go out per invoice that's outstanding on the system. I think, Rebecca, you're going to talk about what next level if that's not working for you. I think that's this section, actually. Do you want to talk about credit control and Chaser, Rebecca?
Cool, yeah. So we had a brief look at the statements there, and they're really handy to send out to your clients, just to give them a little bit of a reminder again as to what you have invoiced in that particular month. And again, you can sort of show between an activity and an outstanding. So as we've covered, Xero has some good basic functionality when it comes to credit control. So last episode, we looked at credit limit. So this is a new feature in Xero, but again, it's something that could just internally help you to monitor how much a customer is spending, how much you feel comfortable letting them have on account. Again, you might want to use something of a third party to actually verify that your internal credit limits are actually going to be correct for that particular customer, because if you just set one internally, you may not know if they themselves having any payment difficulties. So again, then the next option could be to have a look at some online payments. We looked at Stripe and Go Cardless. Again, by offering as many ways as possible for your customers, your clients to pay, you're actually going to get that money in a lot quicker, because it might be that they open that invoice and like, yeah, I've got my card here, I'm going to pay you now. And again, if you have repeat customers, by getting a mandate in place, it's going to be driven by that sale. It's going to be able to be flexible and run in line with the value of those invoices. So again, whereas a standing order or a traditional direct debit, if you change something, you may not collect that full invoice amount. And then moving on, once you're happy with your month end and you then start to chase in those debts, Xero has that functionality to be able to send those invoice reminders. But as we said last time, it will look as though it's come from a computer, because I think they go out, say, 1 minute past midnight. So we then, as a solution, start to look at a piece of software called Chaser. So we recommend this because it's a CRM solution as well. So again, if you've got different people in your business who do different roles, they'll be able to have that access to that software. And again, you'll be able to keep the conversations of chasing those debts. So if somebody's emailed, you've got notes. There is as Frankie demonstrated, you've got that in its basic form in Xero, but it doesn't give you an overall picture. So something like Chaser, you'll have all of that. You can set up many different templates as to the types of clients that you have. So you may have some that do pay online or have got a standing order, but it seems to have been cancelled. So you can set and really tailor those messages that you're sending to your clients. And again, they then tend to have a bit of a better success rate for clients then paying you your money on time. And again, a nice feature is that once they've paid, it actually sends a thank you. And again, it's making sure you've got really good service levels right to that last point. And people thank you for the thank you sometimes, which is quite good. So again, the team here, we're Chaser certified. So if you do feel as though something like Chaser could benefit yourselves and your business, again, just reach out to the team. We can have a bit more of a chat about its functionality and how it could benefit yourselves. And so that takes us into how do we use Xero to then look at how much money we've made, who owes us what, and a general sales overview. So back to you, Frankie, for some lovely reporting.
Okie dokie. So in reports, which is going into accounting and reports, we have all these default ones that have been generated from Xero. We're going to focus on the sales because there's just so many in here. And the first one I'm going to just look at is one I showed a couple weeks ago, which is tailored to show me my profit and loss based on region. So that just gives me a nice breakdown each month as to where my sales are coming from, deriving from the sale type, as in bow ties or donkeys, or which location that I sell from is selling the best. We then have the age receivable one, for instance, that I created earlier, which is great for credit control. And one that's really quite useful recently, and you'll notice it's in a slightly different style. The reason for that is, again, Xero is constantly updating them. So you'll notice when you go into reports, there's a new button. Whenever there's a new button, it usually means it's much prettier than the old school ones. So if I go into income by contact, what I can do is I can say, right, show me July and show me the previous 11 months. And it just gives you a picture of your top clients. You can export this into CSV or Excel, and you can then have a little play around and obviously see that, for instance, Ridgeway, it's one of my biggest clients, consistently using my stuff. But what do you classify perhaps your sales base? The other report, let me go back to here. So my other report is lots of sort of breakdowns of what's happened, activities. But the nice thing is you can then just edit them with this report setting. So you can view them, different fields, you can add filters and say, right, I want to see it based on this. So nice and tailorable. We do use alternative products outside of Xero for real in-depth reporting. So it might be we want to look at trends, month on month, year on year. What is our sales trends? When is our sort of down season? What do we need to prepare for? Is it that cash flow is going to be tight? So all of these reports just makes you just make better business decisions. Again, shout if you need help setting these up in Xero, or if there's something you really have a burning desire to know very often from your data, just give us a shout and I'm sure we could produce something for you to be able to see it. I think that was me done then on the reports.
Lovely, yeah. So we've had a brief look at income by contact, monies owed by customers we've had a look at, and just a sales overview. So that could be just looking at your profit and loss to see what sales have been raised in that particular month or period. So that has brought us to the end of our second deep dive into sales. So we naturally thought next time we would then go to the opposite side and look at our purchases. So here at Farnell Clark, our entry-level softwares are Xero, and we use Receipt Bank. So our next session will be more of a deep dive into Receipt Bank, because we want to make sure that we get the settings and show some really cool features in Receipt Bank, which will save us time and make sure the accuracy in Xero is top notch. So join us next time on the 13th of August, and we'll be looking at Receipt Bank and managing purchases, overviews and creditor reporting. Lovely. Well, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you all soon.
Ta-ta, everyone.